For years, there was a great debate about what the future of our society would look like. The irrational optimists kept assuring us that we would never suffer any serious consequences for decades of incredibly foolish decisions, and they kept promising that a new golden age of peace and prosperity for humanity was just around the corner. Meanwhile, others were warning that humanity would soon be plunging into the abyss, filled with endless nightmares. Instead of a utopian new chapter in our history, we were warned that war, hunger, pestilence, and relentless economic problems were on the horizon. Prior to 2020, to a lot of people, it seemed like the irrational optimists might be right after all. Yes, there were lots of serious problems simmering in the background, but overall, life seemed to be rolling along pretty good for most of the population. But then 2020 came along, and everything changed rapidly. War, hunger, pestilence, and relentless economic problems have all materialized. In fact, things are already so bad in Europe that rationing has now been instituted in some areas. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has threatened the supply of critical commodities in Europe and thrown global supply chains, which were already struggling amid COVID-19, into complete chaos. As a result, the prices of everything from wheat to oil have soared, leading to multi-decade high inflation rates in places like Germany and Spain. The supply crunch in Europe is now so bad it's causing governments to begin laying the groundwork for rationing, with some stores already limiting supplies. This is in Africa that we're talking about. If rationing is already taking place in Europe, how bad is it going to be for the poorer nations in the months ahead? Well, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is telling us that the world's most vulnerable people and countries are heading into a hurricane of hunger. Given Ukraine's great importance as a food exporter, the invasion was also an attack on the world's most vulnerable people and countries. Sadly, he is not exaggerating one bit. Even Biden is admitting that the coming food shortages are going to be real. But even though global leaders are openly telling us that things are going to get really bad, most people still don't seem to be very alarmed. This greatly frustrates me because this is not a false alarm. There are 45 different nations that normally get at least 1/3 of their wheat from Ukraine or Russia. The world's 45 least developed countries import at least 1/3 of their wheat from Ukraine or Russia, and 18 countries among them import more than 50%. These include Egypt, Democratic Republic of Congo, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. These are all countries that are already dependent on humanitarian aid and food supplies because millions of people are currently suffering from massive hunger. How are all these countries supposed to feed their people without that wheat? I keep asking that question, and not a single person has been able to answer it. Just look at the crisis that has erupted in Lebanon. They normally get approximately 75% of their wheat from either Russia or Ukraine, and so far, they've been unable to procure supplies from alternate sources. Lebanon, which obtains 75% of its wheat from Russia, and especially Ukraine, is also desperately seeking other wheat exporters, but so far without success. The government turned to the international community with a call for help. There are now fears of rationing and sharp price increases, which will hit the already hard-pressed population hard. Meanwhile, the global flu bird plague just continues to intensify. In the US, the total death toll is now just short of 28 million. The new cases mean that across the nation, farmers had to kill about 22 million egg-laying chickens, 1.8 million broiler chickens, 1.9 million pullet and other commercial chickens, and 1.9 million turkeys. It has taken less than 2 months to go from first confirmed case in the US to nearly 28 million dead. So what will the death toll look like in 6 months from now? And can you imagine what this will do to the food prices? It is being reported that the price of a dozen eggs has already risen 52% since the start of this new pandemic. I wish I had sufficient words to properly convey the urgency that we should be feeling at this hour. We are heading into a complete and total nightmare, and I wish I could get more people to understand this. Mike Adams is sounding the alarm too, warning of food scarcity, food vouchers, food riots and flash mobs. His advice: people need to get prepared now. Of course, he is right on target. At this point, it is clear that the great debate is over. The irrational optimists were wrong. There will be no golden era of peace and prosperity for humanity. Instead, we have entered a perfect storm of pain, suffering and horror. For many years, society laughed at the doomsday preppers, but they were right. And if you plan to make it through the extremely chaotic times that are coming, I would recommend that you become a doomsday prepper too.